You have tracheal rings down the center, and if you follow from your hyoid down, and you feel for tracheal rings, there'll be a small segment where you can't really clearly feel tracheal rings, and that's what's called the isthmus of the thyroid gland. So that's just the connection between the left and right lobes of the thyroid. And so thyroid gland is pretty big, pretty large, but tucked up nicely against the trachea. When you look at it microscopically, it looks like this. This is why it's easy. There's nothing else in your body that looks like this. It has what is generally called a colloid, but this colloid is made of thyroglobulin. So a colloid is really just a proteinaceous gel. So think like Jell-O. It's kind of like pectin, even though it's not made of the same thing, but it's kind of that same substance. So if you were to cut open and shrink down and touch this, it would actually kind of feel like Jell-O. Now that's what a colloid is. It's kind of like the chemical term for a molecular Jell-O. But this colloid specifically is thyroglobulin because of what's in there. So this is what is actually storing the T3 and T4. So what happens is that colloid is full of T3 and T4, but where that T3 and T4 is coming from are these cells that are lining the edge of the colloid. So the cells that are actually touching the edge, those are called follicular cells. Where'd my other color go? So again, you know it's a follicular cell if it's actually touching the colloid. It's that simple. The other type of cell in here is called a parafollicular cell. And a parafollicular cell is just the ones that aren't touching the colloid. So all these guys mixed in here, and if you look closely under the microscope, they really do have a different appearance. So the parafollicular cells are releasing the calcitonin, and the follicular cells are releasing T3 and T4. Now, I want to just point out exactly, so this is my drawing of a thyroid follicle. So this whole thing from here to here, that is a follicle. That's why these things around the border are called follicular cells. So think of this as a bunch of simple cuboidal epithelium surrounding your colloid, and those are what your follicles are. Then mixed in between them, you have the parafollicular cells. They're not part of the follicle at all, they're just squished between the two. And so that's why these ones touching here, again, are the follicular cells, and in the center is a colloid that is called, very specifically, thyroglobulin. Now, just to give you, the next time you'll see this is probably in a pathophysiology course, where they will talk about people with hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism and a lot of the different causes. So when your thyroid is overactive, you tend to have a larger thyroid gland. And so you tend to have a swelling in the gland, mostly because of expansion of these colloids. So the variation that you tend to see, there's a number of different reasons. So it can be because you don't release it too much, release it fast enough, or that you make it too fast. It's one of those things like the aqueous humor in the eye. A lot of different ways you can get there. But if you ever see a larger thyroid, which is usually referred to as a goiter, it's from an expansion of the colloid for a number of different reasons. It's not a growth in the number of cells.